Zayden Jameson yanked off his bow tie and muttered a curse under his breath as he shoved through the gilded doors of the Langford Grand Ballroom, the roar of the Gala still trailing behind him like an annoying ghost. He hated these things. Fake smiles. Boring speeches. People who pretended to care what he thought just because he owned half the skyline. All he'd wanted was 5 minutes of quiet, but even on the terrace, someone from the board had cornered him about expansion in Dubai. He hadn't even had a sip of champagne before someone brought up mergers. Screw this. He didn't even wait for his driver. He just kept walking down the marble steps, cutting across the sidewalk like any other man in Manhattan who wanted to disappear for a night. Then he saw her, a woman in a navy coat with a broken heel dangling from her hand, standing on the edge of the street, squinting at the flood of taxis like she was trying to will one into existence. Her midnight hair was falling out of a messy braid, and her lipstick was faded, but her eyes were fire. She looked like she'd just walked out of a different world and landed in this one by mistake. Zayden stopped without realizing it. Another cab pulled up. She raised her hand, but 2 guys in suits cut ahead of her and took it. She let out a breath, trying to laugh it off, but the exhaustion was clear in her face. He didn't even think. "Share a cab with me," he said, stepping closer. Her head whipped toward him, eyes narrowing. "Excuse me. I'm not a creep," he added quickly. There's a cab coming, and you look like you need out of here as much as I do." He paused, then nodded toward her shoe. "Unless you plan on hopping home." She blinked, looked at him like she was weighing the risk, then finally let out a sigh and nodded. "Fine. But if you try anything, I bite." Zayden actually laughed. "Noted." The cab rolled up and he opened the door for her. She hesitated for half a second, then slid in. He followed. "Where to?" the driver asked. "Midtown," she said. "Upper East," Zayden added. The driver nodded and pulled into traffic. For a moment, there was silence. Then she glanced at him. "You just left the Langford Gala?" "Yeah. Escaped is a better word." She smiled. "Same. I was working it." "Oh." He looked over. "What do you do?" "Catering. One of the temp staff. I was on canopy duty until someone knocked over the shrimp tower. After that, it was damage control." He grinned. "Sounds brutal." It was. "I'm still smelling like cocktail sauce." He chuckled. "I'm Zayden, by the way." She raised an eyebrow. "Just Zayden." He hesitated. "Zayden Jameson." She blinked. "Wait. Like Jameson Holdings?" "Yeah." Her eyes widened, then narrowed just as fast. "So, you're one of the people throwing the party I just limped away from." "I didn't throw it. I just got dragged into it." She studied him for another second, then slowly relaxed. "I'm Brielle." "Brielle what?" "Brielle Rivers." "Nice to meet you, Brielle Rivers." They both smiled. "So, what's it like?" she asked, leaning back against the cab seat. "Being one of the guys in a tux everyone else has to serve?" Zayden tilted his head. "Exhausting, actually." She gave him a look. "Seriously," he said. "Everyone wants something. No one actually says what they mean. And if you try to take a night off, there's a whole PR team ready to spin it." Brielle leaned her head against the window. "I work 2 jobs. I live in a tiny studio that smells like old soup. But I guess we both feel trapped sometimes." He looked at her, surprised by how quickly her honesty hit him. "Yeah," he said softly. "I guess we do." The cab swerved through the city. They talked like they'd known each other for years. She told him about her dream to open a bakery, about her grandma's recipes, about how she used to bake cinnamon rolls at midnight when she couldn't sleep. He told her about his dad, who built the company from nothing, about how Zayden had been handed the keys to an empire and felt like he was always one wrong step from breaking it. They laughed. They argued about the best pizza in New York. She made fun of his loafers. He teased her about the salsa stain on her coat. And just like that, they were pulling up to her building. It was a narrow walk up, tucked between a dry cleaner and a nail salon. She turned to him. "Thanks for the ride," she said. "Wait." He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a business card. She raised an eyebrow. "Really?" He ignored her tone, flipping it over and writing something on the back before handing it to her. That's my actual number, not my assistant's. If you ever want to get coffee or, I don't know, make me cinnamon rolls at midnight." She laughed. "Wow, that's bold. I just know I don't want this to be the only time I see you." She stared at him, and then slowly she took the card. "Good night, Zayden Jameson. Good night, Brielle Rivers." He watched her walk inside, her broken heel still dangling from her hand. Zayden leaned back in the cab, heart racing for the first time in months. He had no idea who she really was, but something told him this wasn't the end. Not even close. 2 days later, Zayden stood in front of his office's floor-to-ceiling windows, his tie abandoned on the back of a leather chair, sleeves rolled up, and a half-drunk espresso cooling on his desk. His assistant, Mallory, had already knocked 3 times about the investor lunch. He didn't answer, not because he forgot, but because he couldn't stop thinking about her. Brielle Rivers. She hadn't called. He hadn't expected her to, not really. Most people knew who he was before introductions ended. She hadn't, and when she found out, she didn't care. That was the part that stuck. He turned his phone over again, just in case he missed a call or a voicemail. Nothing. Zayden, Mallory's voice came through the intercom, now sharper. "The Japanese delegation is waiting in the conference room. You're 28 minutes behind." He exhaled, pressed the button. "Send them pastries. I'll be there in 5. He wasn't sure what possessed him to say it. But the second the word pastries came out of his mouth, something clicked. Her voice. Her bakery dream. The quiet way she'd lit up when she talked about brown sugar and cinnamon. He grabbed his coat. "Cancel my meetings," he said into the intercom. "All of them." Mallory didn't speak for a beat. "Sir? I'll reschedule." "Just do it." He didn't explain. He was already out the door. It took him an hour to track her down. He didn't even know her last name until he checked the back of the card he gave her, the one he'd scribbled on. All she'd told him was her name and the catering company she worked for. A quick call revealed she'd picked up a shift at a cafe on the Lower East Side. Temporary fill-in. Someone had called in sick. When he walked in, the place smelled like warm butter and orange zest. A bell chimed above the door. No one looked up except her. She was behind the counter, sleeves dusted in flour, a single curl falling over her cheek. Her eyes locked on him and she froze, holding a tray of croissants. "You," she said. He stepped closer. "Me. I didn't call," she said, setting the tray down. "I was going to, but..." She folded her arms. "You're not supposed to just show up like this." "I didn't plan to," he said. "But I couldn't stop thinking about you. And I wasn't sure if you'd want to see me again." She leaned against the counter. "So you tracked me down?" "Not in a creepy way." "Is there a non-creepy way to track someone down at work?" He smiled. "I asked your boss nicely, and I brought this." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small white box, tied with a gold ribbon. She stared at it. "What is it?" "A peace offering." She hesitated, then untied the ribbon. Inside were 5 miniature tarts, perfectly glazed, colorful, each in its own paper shell. "I had my chef prep them," he said. "I wanted to see what you thought." She lifted one, a lemon curd with toasted meringue. "You brought me dessert to bribe me into talking to you?" "I brought you dessert because I thought you'd like it." She took a bite. Her eyes closed. "Okay. That's criminally good." He relaxed. "You're not mad." "I was. Surprised," she said. "I don't exactly get followed by billionaires." He stepped closer. "I'd rather just be the guy who couldn't forget the woman who made him laugh in the back of a cab." For a moment, she didn't say anything. Then, "I get off in 15 minutes. Then I'll wait." Later, they walked 2 blocks to the park, coffee cups in hand, the sun low behind the buildings. Kids screamed from a nearby playground. A dog chased a pigeon. Everything felt loud and alive. "You said you don't like being the center of attention," she said, sipping her drink. "I don't," he said. "Most of the time, I feel like I'm living someone else's life." "My father started the company with nothing but a loan and a second-hand laptop. I was born into it. I didn't earn it. I just keep trying not to screw it up. She glanced at him. That doesn't mean it's not yours. He looked at her, surprised. I mean, yeah, you didn't build it from scratch, she said. But you're still steering the ship. That counts. He didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever said it to him like that before. What about you? He asked. Why haven't you opened that bakery yet? She shrugged. Money. Rent. Time. Take your pick. But you're good. I'm decent. No, he said. You're more than that. You light up when you talk about it. That's rare. She stared at him, serious now. Why are you saying all this? Because I don't want this to be a fluke. I want to see you again. Her eyes searched his. Zayden, I don't live in your world. Then I'll meet you in yours. She didn't answer right away. Just walked a few more steps, then stopped at the fountain. I've seen the way men like you look at women like me, she said finally. Like a fun distraction. Something shiny until the next gala. He stepped in front of her. Then look at me now, he said. Does it look like I'm thinking about anything else? She didn't move. He reached for her hand slowly. She let him take it. I'm not trying to impress you, he said. I'm trying to know you. Her breath caught. You don't give up, do you? Not when it matters. A long silence stretched between them. People passed. A cyclist rang his bell. Somewhere a saxophone played. Finally, she said, okay. Okay. I'll see you again. He smiled, and this time she didn't look away. She tugged him toward the subway entrance. Come on, she said. I know a place that makes the weirdest dumplings you've ever had. He raised a brow. Weird how? You'll see. And just like that, he followed her into the city's pulse. No suits, no cameras, no chauffeurs. Just them. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like Zayden Jameson, CEO. He just felt like a man who'd gotten lucky enough to sit next to the right woman in a cab. The first time Zayden kissed Brielle, it was on a rooftop above Delancey Street with steam curling from nearby chimneys and the scent of sesame oil drifting from the restaurant vents below. It wasn't planned. They'd just finished sharing a plate of neon green wasabi dumplings at the hole-in-the-wall spot she'd insisted on, and she dragged him up the fire escape for the view, she said, though she barely looked at the skyline once. Instead, she'd leaned against the rusted railing, watching him. I'm still trying to figure out if you're serious, she said, tucking her hands into her coat. Zayden turned toward her. About what? About me. He stepped closer. I'm not playing. She looked up, eyes darker than the city beneath them. Then why haven't you tried to kiss me? He didn't answer. He just leaned in and did exactly that. She tasted like ginger and lime, and for a moment, everything else dropped away: the numbers, the board meetings, the weight of expectations. It was just her. Brielle. The woman who called him out without blinking and who, for some reason, hadn't run from the fact that he could buy the building they stood on with a single phone call. After that night, things moved fast. Not in the way tabloids like to write about. There were no flashy headlines, no paparazzi shots of them sipping champagne at rooftop bars. Zayden made sure of it. He didn't take her to the places people expected. He took her to late-night jazz clubs where no one asked for selfies and to bookstores that stayed open past midnight. They ate greasy Korean fried chicken in alleyways and argued about whether ghosts were real in a candlelit speakeasy in Brooklyn. Brielle never let him pay for everything. She insisted on covering the hot chocolate from street vendors and once even Venmoed him $5 after he bought her a pretzel. It's called balance, she said, eyes dancing. But slowly, the edges of their separate worlds began to press against them. It started with a call from his publicist. You've been off radar, she said. That doesn't work for someone like you. People are starting to ask questions. Let them, he replied, already halfway out the door. Then came the charity auction. He hadn't intended to go, but his name was on the invitation, and his mother had called twice to remind him that the Jamesons did not simply skip the Children's Literacy Foundation Gala. He showed up late, hoping to duck in and out. He didn't expect Brielle to be there. She was near the back, balancing a tray of white wine and bruschetta, her hair twisted up, a black apron tying her to everyone else in the staff. She didn't see him at first. He watched her for a beat, something tight curling in his chest. He hated it. The look in her eyes. The way people ignored her as she passed. The way one man waved her off with a flick of his fingers like she was invisible. He moved toward her before he could second-guess it. Brielle. She turned, startled, nearly dropping the tray. Zayden, you're working. Obviously. I thought you said you had the night. I picked up a shift. Rent's due. He glanced around. Come with me. I can't just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. She hesitated, then handed her tray to another server with a rushed apology and followed him out onto the balcony, where the chatter dimmed behind glass doors. I didn't know you'd be here, she said. Neither did I. She leaned against the stone railing. You look different in a tux. He tugged at the collar. Uncomfortable. She smiled faintly, then looked back inside. This is your world, huh? Not really. Feels like it. He stepped beside her. I hated seeing you in there. She turned slowly. Why? Because you don't belong carrying trays and being ignored by people who couldn't handle your fire for 2 seconds. Her gaze sharpened. Zayden, I'm not ashamed of where I am. I didn't mean it like that. She exhaled. Look, I need you to understand something. I've worked for everything I have. I don't want to be your secret side project or your escape from boardrooms and gala speeches. I'm not here to be rescued. He looked at her for a long moment. And I'm not trying to rescue you. I just want to be where you are. She blinked, caught off guard. I'm not used to this, she said finally. People don't usually follow me out onto balconies. Well, he said softly, maybe they're idiots. She laughed then, and the tension broke just enough for her to lean into his side. But the cracks were showing. The next morning, a photo surfaced online. Someone had snapped a blurry shot of Zayden standing too close to a catering staffer on the balcony. Her face obscured, but his unmistakable. By noon, his phone was blowing up. Who is she? Is this serious? Is she vetted? He ignored them all, but Brielle didn't. When she met him the next day at their usual spot near the East River, her expression was unreadable. I saw the article, she said. It's nothing. It's not nothing. My phone's been blowing up. My manager asked if I was dating the Zayden Jameson. He said it like I'd committed a crime. I can fix this, Zayden said. How? I'll make a statement. Say we're together. Officially. She stared at him. You want to announce our relationship to the world because of a leaked photo? No. I want to do it because I'm not hiding you. I never was. Her voice was quiet. Then why does it feel like we live in 2 different solar systems? Then let me bridge them, he said. Let me show you what my world looks like when it's not covered in flashbulbs and fake smiles. She didn't answer immediately. Then, tomorrow night, but I pick the place. He nodded. Whatever you want. She turned to leave but paused. And Zayden? Yeah. No tux. He grinned, heart thudding. Deal. But neither of them knew what was coming. Not the storm about to hit. Not the truth hiding in plain sight. And certainly not the decision that would force them to either shatter or fight like hell to stay together. The restaurant Brielle chose was tucked behind a wrought iron gate in Harlem, a converted brownstone with strings of golden lights draped across its courtyard and jazz humming low from a vintage record player inside. Zayden had never seen the place before, but when he stepped inside, he understood immediately why she'd brought him there. There were no cameras, no flash, just candlelight, worn leather booths, and the kind of quiet that invited truth. She was waiting for him at a corner table wearing a deep burgundy blouse and a pair of matte gold earrings shaped like leaves. Her hair was down for the first time since he'd met her, curling slightly at the ends. She didn't rise when he approached, just watched him with that same unreadable expression she'd worn when she first found him beside her on the Gala terrace. You came, she said as he slid into the seat across from her. I said I would. He glanced around. You've been holding out on me. This place is magic. My grandfather used to bring my mom here, she said. They used to come after church on Sundays. He'd order the same thing every time, catfish and buttered greens. I figured if I was going to let you into my world, I should start with somewhere that meant something. Zayden's voice softened. Thank you for trusting me with that. I'm not sure I do yet, she said, but her tone wasn't cold, just cautious. He didn't push. Instead, he reached for the menu and let the silence stretch, comfortable in its weight. When the waitress came, Brielle ordered for both of them without asking, catfish, of course, and a bourbon apple bread pudding for dessert. I wanted to tell you something before anyone else does, he said once their drinks arrived. Her eyes narrowed. That doesn't sound good. It's not bad, he said. But it's big. She waited. I bought a property this week. A little storefront in the East Village. I've been watching it for months. It used to be a bakery, but it's been shuttered for almost a year. She straightened. Why are you telling me this? Because I want to give it to you. She blinked. What? I don't mean hand it to you like a trophy. I mean lease it to you for $1 a year. You run it. You own the name, the brand, the recipes. I'll handle the remodel and startup costs. No strings. Her voice was tight. That feels like a lot of strings. It's not charity. I believe in you. And I know what it feels like to wait for the perfect moment to chase something that burns inside you. She was silent for a long time, fingers tracing the rim of her glass. I didn't ask you for this, she finally said. I know. And if I fail, then you fail trying. But I don't think you will. The food arrived before she could answer. They ate in silence for a few minutes, long enough for her to taste everything, long enough for him to watch her fall into the comfort of something familiar. When she finally looked up again, her voice had softened. You're not what I expected. I get that a lot. I thought you'd try to change me. Or make me fit into your life like a puzzle piece shaved down and polished until I looked right next to your suits and boardrooms. I don't want to change a thing about you, Brielle. I just want to build something that makes room for both of us. Her eyes didn't leave his. I've spent my whole life keeping people at a distance. It's easier to survive when you don't expect anyone to stay. I'm not going anywhere. She studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached across the table and took his hand. I don't want a prince on a white horse, she said quietly. I want a partner. Then that's what you'll have. That night he walked her home. Not in a chauffeured car. Not with bodyguards trailing behind them, just the two of them. Hands entwined. The city humming around them like it had always been theirs. It wasn't until 2 weeks later that he realized how much she'd already changed his world. He was in his office reviewing a pitch deck when Mallory stepped in with a look on her face he didn't recognize. There's someone here to see you, she said. She refused to wait. Before he could ask, Brielle strode into the room holding a newspaper. He stood. What's going on? She tossed the paper onto his desk. There, printed across the business section, was a headline, Jameson opens bakery for new girlfriend, is the city's most eligible bachelor finally settling down? The article was worse than the title, full of speculation, intrusive quotes, and even a photo of the storefront with her name already painted across the glass. I didn't release that, he said, voice low. But someone did. I'll shut it down. That's not the point, she said. I don't care about the press. I care about whether you're building this with me or for me. He walked around the desk slowly. I never wanted this to be about me. I never wanted the world to invade what we're building. Then prove it. Tell me how. Be there when I open the doors. Not as the man who paid for the sign, but as the guy who shared a cab with me on a freezing night in Manhattan and made me laugh when I wanted to cry. He stepped closer. You still think about that night? Every time I walk past the corner where we met. He touched her cheek gently. Then let's build something they can't touch. The bakery opened on a Sunday morning. There were no reporters, no press releases. Just the smell of cinnamon and espresso, jazz playing from a record player in the corner, and a line of customers that wrapped around the block by 9 a.m. Zayden showed up before dawn, sleeves rolled up, flour streaked across his jaw from helping knead the first batch of dough. By noon, Brielle had sold out of her grandmother's apple crumble. At 2, she leaned over the counter, breathless with joy, and kissed him in front of everyone. He didn't care who saw. Later that night, when the doors were locked and the lights dimmed, He pulled her close on the checkerboard tile floor, their backs against the pastry case. "You stole my heart in the back of a cab," he murmured. She smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And you gave me the rest of the map." They didn't need anything more than that. Not a crown, not a title, just each other, and a place to build a life that was finally completely theirs. The sun filtered through the tall windows of the bakery as Brielle stood behind the counter, sleeves rolled up, her apron dusted in flour and powdered sugar. The air was thick with the scent of buttered brioche and caramelized pecans. It was their third Saturday since the grand opening, and the line outside hadn't let up since morning. But it wasn't the crowd that made her pulse race. It was the man crouched on the floor by the display case, fixing a loose tile with a look of intense focus, his hair slightly tousled, the cuff of his shirt rolled back just enough to reveal the edge of a watch that could buy an apartment. Zayden didn't belong on bakery floors. But there he was, sleeves rolled, shirt dusted, completely immersed in her world. "You know you hired a contractor for that exact reason, right?" she asked, handing a box to a customer and wiping her hands on her apron. He looked up, grinning. "He was late. You're a CEO. Not today." She rounded the counter and knelt beside him. "You're going to mess up your back. Worth it. You're impossible. And you're beautiful when you're bossy." She tried not to smile but failed. That night, after the last tray of lemon lavender shortbread had been sold and the chairs were flipped onto tables, Brielle pulled 2 glasses from the shelf above the sink and poured them both a splash of red wine. They sat on the floor, backs against the fridge, the hum of the cooling unit filling the space between them. "I never thought I'd be this happy," she said, swirling the wine. Zayden looked over at her. "What changed?" "You," she said. "Me. Us. I stopped thinking I had to do everything alone." He reached for her hand. "You never did. You just didn't know I was out there yet." They sat in silence for a moment, fingers intertwined. Then she said, "Your mother called." Zayden stiffened slightly. "She tracked you down?" "She came by yesterday morning. Said she wanted to see the place." He turned fully to her. "What did she say?" "That she was skeptical at first. That she thought I was just another distraction. But then she had one of my raspberry thumbprints and asked for the recipe." He blinked. "She asked for a recipe?" "She said if I was going to be in your life, she wanted to understand my world." Zayden leaned back, eyes softening. "That's a first." "She also asked if I was planning to stay." He didn't say anything. "I told her yes," Brielle added. "And not because of the bakery. Because of you." He set his glass down and shifted closer. "I've been thinking about something more permanent." Her eyes met his steady. "More than a storefront and a shared lease?" He pulled a small velvet box from his jacket pocket and held it without opening it. "I kept this for weeks," he said. "I wanted to wait until the right time. But I realized tonight there's no perfect moment. There's just now." She stared at the box, her breath catching. "I love you, Brielle. Not because you made this bakery real, or because you challenge me, or because you make me laugh when the rest of the world feels like a job interview. I love you because you see me. And even with everything I come with, you stayed." He opened the box. Inside was a ring unlike anything she'd ever imagined. No massive diamond, no flashy setting. Just a single round-cut sapphire set in brushed gold, elegant and quietly timeless. "I didn't want something flashy," he said. "I wanted something that felt like you." She didn't speak. He took her silence for hesitation. "You don't have to say yes. Not now. Or ever. I had to ask." She reached for the box with trembling fingers and closed it gently. Then she looked up and whispered, "Yes." Zayden's shoulders dropped with relief as he exhaled a laugh. "Yeah, yeah," she said, climbing into his lap and wrapping her arms around his neck. "Of course, yes." He kissed her there, surrounded by flour and empty trays, with the hum of the fridge and the soft buzz of the city outside. A week later, they stood on the rooftop where they'd first kissed. She wore a pale ivory dress that fell just above her knees, her hair loose and kissed by the wind. He wore a navy suit with no tie, just an open collar, and that same look on his face he'd worn the night she'd first shared her dream. The ceremony was small, just close friends, a few family members, and the staff from the bakery, who cheered when she walked out holding a bouquet of wildflowers and thistle. Zayden's mother held back tears and handed her a hand-embroidered handkerchief with the Jameson crest stitched in gold thread. "I had it made for the woman who'd change my son's life," she said. After the ceremony, they danced beneath string lights and drank champagne from mismatched glasses. No press, no headlines, just them. Later, as the guests began to leave, and the sky turned soft with dusk, Brielle pulled Zayden aside. "I have something for you." He raised an eyebrow. She handed him a small white envelope. Inside was a deed. He read it, frowning. "What is this?" "A building," she said. "Well, half a building. I bought it with the money from our first month's profits." He stared at her. "You gave me a future," she said. "I wanted to give you something back." He looked up slowly. "You bought me real estate." She grinned. "It's a tiny old bookstore near the bakery. I thought maybe it could be an office, or a place we just sit and read when the world gets loud." He pulled her into his arms and kissed her until they were both breathless. No more lines between their worlds. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just them building, dreaming, and leaning into every beautiful, unpredictable second of the life they'd chosen. Years later, people would walk past Brielle's bakery and wonder how the woman behind the counter ended up with the man who owned half the city. They'd never guess it started with a broken heel and a shared cab. But if they stepped inside and looked closely, they'd see the photo above the register. A woman in a navy coat, a man in rolled sleeves, both laughing like they had nothing left to prove. And beside them, a small plaque that read, "Built with love. Served with heart." Because in the end, that's what it was. Not a fairy tale. Something better. Something real.